Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Gainsight's Chief Strategist of Pulse Programs, Ruben Rabago.
Woohoo! All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Awesome. There we go. That's the customer success expressions that I was looking for. We're going to continue on the theme of career success. And our topic for today, I'm really excited to hear myself as well, is challenging your customers in order to really achieve their desired outcomes. We have two fantastic specialists. People have been in the mix of working with customers and really understanding what works and what doesn't. So I am really thrilled to introduce you to Mary Frances Betvelden. Please come on. And Dylan Webster.
Thanks, Ruben.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Dylan,
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Mary. She's pretty awesome.
Thanks.
VP of CS for SAP Concur. You were an exec before, too, at a couple startups, right?
I was. I've been doing this a long time, before CS was a thing.
Yeah. And Dylan's been in the mud, too. You've been working it.
Little bit, yes.
Currently a senior director of CS, also for SAP Concur.
That's right.
And you've built several CS teams from scratch.
That's right.
You are all in great hands. Have at it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruben. I was laughing backstage because every time you come up, there's always really great music, and you're like, I kind of feel like I want to dance, but don't look awkward, so how am I going to pull that off?
Especially in those heels,
Yeah.
so be careful.
So I didn't. You're welcome. Okay. I didn't dance. So thank you all for attending our session today. My name is Mary Frances Betvelden. I'm the VP of Client Success for SAP Concur. As I mentioned, I've been in the customer success world for 7+ years, creating teams at various different companies. But before that, I will admit it, I am a recovering VP of sales. And the one great thing, not one great, there's many great things, but I took a lot of what I learned during my time in sales and altered it a little bit to fit CS, because I think there's some really great theories and concepts. And today we're going to specifically talk around how we took some philosophies of the challenger mentality, created them, made them our own, and applied them to our CS team. And Dylan's going to kick off today talking a little bit about our journey and how we got there.
Perfect. All right, thanks, Mary. Yes, I'm Dylan Webster, Senior Director of Client Success at SAP Concur. Now, I want to see a show of hands. I can kind of see out there. How many people are familiar with the Challenger Sale book? All right, a good amount of you. That's amazing. So again, Mary and I were both former salespeople and sales leaders. And what we really loved about Challenger is that it asks salespeople to come on a journey where they move from being rapport-based salespeople to actually helping work with their prospects and customers to teach them new ways to do business, to teach them new ways to operate. And as we moved into customer success, we realized that there's so much about that really resonates. So in customer success, isn't it our job to actually help our customers think about new ways of getting new outcomes and to help them to change the way that they operate and the way that they do business, hopefully leveraging our technology, our services, our products. So we saw the immediate applicability in the Challenger Sale framework and brought that over to customer success, specifically at SAP Concur. Now, you build a product. Hopefully it has really cool features. SAP Concur has a lot of features. You enable your CSMs to understand those features, where they can teach your customers how to leverage them and hopefully get some value. The thing is, I think we have an old fix animations one here. Sorry.
They fixed the animations.
I think I did fix them, but the thing is, only 38% of your customers actually bought your product or service based upon the features you have. So where does that leave us? Well, probably a good next step as we think about how do we demonstrate value to our customers is to help them understand the return that they're getting on their investment with your products and services. Now, unfortunately, Only 9% of your customers actually bought your product or service based upon the anticipated ROI. So it's really important to help demonstrate that. But where does that leave us? So a full 53% of your customers bought your product or service based upon the experience that they had with the person they were working with. Now, we know when a customer signs a contract, they get really excited. Hopefully they've bought into the vision. They are thinking about, how can I leverage this service to actually change the way that I operate, to improve my business, to improve the outcomes we have in our business. So they're excited. What happens when a customer signs that contract maybe right after that? Sometimes the excitement goes from here and it drops down just a little bit. So at SAP Concur, we saw what I'll call a problem or maybe an opportunity, because I'm really positive, glass half full kind of person. So out of the churn that we have, just over half of our customer churn happens in that first year after the customer signs a contract. Big opportunity, right? So as we looked at this, we said, okay, this customer's bought in. They want to execute on how they can improve their business. They buy into the salesperson's vision. They sign that contract. They send us their money. What are we doing at that point? Well, we're implementing their product. We're kind of configuring some things, helping them set up some different functionality within the tool. But what has to happen along with that? The customer actually has to make a commitment to actually implementing change. Particularly when you think about implementing a new product, new technology, new service, so much around that has to actually change within the business where the customer is implementing it. They have to think about how to actually operationalize technology. And so when we looked at this, we said, I don't know that we have the right kind of people and resources and skill set yet working with that customer that can take that challenger mentality from the sales process and thread it through and really partner with that customer to help usher in change.
And I've been at SAP Concur now for 3 years. And in 2016, when I got to Concur, I really spent a lot of time observing. And it's not just observing my CSMs, it's actually getting out, talking with customers, getting their feedback as well. And as Dylan mentioned, it really became clear to me that we had a very big opportunity to create some process and infrastructure to help guide our team on how and when to engage with clients. Because if I'm honest, when I walked in, our team was almost 100% reactive. They were responding to customer emails and to calls, but I think if you were to ask any of my CSMs at the time, and I did, how much time do you spend making proactive calls to customer? And they said, if I'm lucky, maybe a week, right? And as a CSM leader, that is not what you want to hear, right? But hey, good news. We have a lot of opportunity to improve. And so really, based off the observations and the feedback that I was getting both from my team and from customers, that's when the idea of the challenger mentality. And I know that there is some research out there that says the challenger mentality sometimes can backfire. But what I did is I took what I thought were the best pieces of the challenger mentality, and I really adopted them to the CSM world and frame of thinking. So in 2017, we implemented what we call the challenger philosophy for CSMs, and we created a brand new engagement framework. And really, what those 5 key philosophies were that we've started to reinforce within our team are really kind of at their core very simple, but as you start to peel back the layers of the onion, they're a little bit more complex than you think. The first is really two-way communication. Sounds really simple, but in practice, when you go listen to CSMs, sometimes it's just not happening. Bringing a unique perspective to conversations, and as we all have heard, probably throughout all of the day yesterday and today, is really understanding what value means to your customers. And if I'm honest, these last 2 are probably the hardest pieces to get adopted. The first part is being comfortable talking about money. And when I say comfortable talking about money, I don't mean negotiating, because that's not what we do. Our friends in sales take care of that. When I say talk about money, it's those times and conversations where customers bring forward pains in changing their mind around their budgets, their decision making, or hey, I have problems and your solution that I'm paying for is not solving this particular problem. I found that my CSMs they shied away from those conversations, and at that point they would say, let me introduce you, or let me have you call your salesperson. But we have challenged our team to lean into those conversations in a way that has allowed my team to, one, uncover risk where they had no idea was there based off their conversations. And number two, actually find opportunity to talk to customers around how our products actually are a great fit for the problem or challenge customers are facing, and really leads to great conversations around value. And last but not least, challenging a customer's point of view. And this is interesting because my team talks a lot to CFOs or controllers. And when they walk into the room, some of my CSMs would assume that controllers and CFOs knew pieces of information. And so we've challenged our team to really walk in and say, guess what? You're an expert. You talk to thousands of customers over the course of years, and you do have great input. You can teach a CFO new things, and you should teach a CFO new things. And so in 2018, we've continued this message, but as you can see, it's a lot of words. It's actually 9 words, if you count POV as a word. And we said, we have a bunch of new people. We have over 100 CSMs in our organization. How do we get them to remember this in an easy, simple term? And all credit goes to one of the senior directors on my team who coined the phrase, teach, tailor, and control. And this is now a mantra that every single CSM in our organization talks about. And actually, all of our CSM leaders during their coaching and training sessions, they actually focus their coaching conversations around one of these points during their sessions. And they will ask a CSM, hey, let's talk about the teaching moment in that conversation. What did that look like? How can you change that? What did you do well? So we're going to spend the rest of the time digging into each one of these pieces. And so let me see, by a raise of hands, how many people at one time or another wish they had the superpower to sleep with their eyes closed during a meeting?
Eyes open.
Open. Open, sorry.
Eyes closed would be nice, too.
I mean, closed would
Take
be a little
nap.
rude, but open is much better.
Yeah.
Right? This seems really easy. Two-way communication indicates that two people are talking, right? Seems very high level, and people are, why are we talking about this? It seems really like, I feel like I should be at some large conference, asleep. So the way that we thought about it, and the funny story that I always think about, and I reference this, is I had a conversation that was set up with me from one of our vendors, put a calendar on my meeting. I had a bunch of questions about this product, so I was excited thinking that they are going to be addressing all of my needs and my questions on this, and I may learn something from my contact. So get on the phone, and this contact proceeded to talk for 17 minutes straight. I didn't say one word. And this contact actually ended up talking really all about himself and what he could do for our company, which was great to hear. But at the end of the conversation, he didn't ask one question, and I didn't learn anything new. So I hung up the phone, and I immediately actually pinged Dylan, and I said, Dylan, I'm going to use this as an example of what not to do. And I said to myself, well, our team doesn't do that. Well, that coming week, I sat on some calls with my CSMs, and I heard a lot of the phrase, hi, I'm calling to check in. And a little part of me died a little bit every time I heard that. Because when you call and check in, you're indicating that you're calling to check in for yourself. You are not indicating, and my CSMs were indicating to our customers, hi, I'm calling and I have something really valuable to tell you, and you are going to gain something from this conversation. What is in it for them? And so really, after much conversation, it's the way that we've changed our philosophy to coach our team to always remember what's in it for them. When you're reaching out via phone, via email, what's in it for them? It's not about you. Yes, we do want to answer a lot of our questions. Are you going to renew? How are you, making sure that they're still happy with our product and service? But you can get at the answers to those questions in a different way throughout your conversation by asking questions and making it a dialogue. And after that conversation, the idea came, well, our team, is talking to customers. They're great conversations, but there wasn't a lot of consistency throughout when our team was talking to customers. So with that, we decided to create something that we call an engagement framework. And really, it's a roadmap for our CSM team to understand when and how to engage with clients. Now, some of this is really self-explanatory. I'm not going to dig into all of these, but some of them are time-based and some of them are event-based. And I can tell you that we actually automate some of it through Gainsight. But really, what we found is that the team was really struggling to understand, how do I call a client? When should I be calling a client? What are the indicators that I should call my clients? I talk to the ones that are the noisiest. I talk to my highest ARR clients all the time, but what about the rest? When should I be calling these clients, and what should I be talking with them about? And so really, our core conversation is what we call the solution review. And we very purposefully call it a solution review and not a business review, and here's why. Everybody has business reviews. And I know when I see a business review on my calendar from a vendor, I'm like, oh, what am I going to hear today? Is there anything in here are they going to pitch me a new service? Am I going to get anything out of this conversation? And so we changed the internal vernacular to solution review and actually tell our customers it's a solution review, which really indicates that we're going to be talking about the solution you have today and how it relates to the value that you wanted when you came and you purchased Concur for your company. And with that said, once we started having the solution reviews, a big part was, okay, now that I've understood, their values and I have something to say, what else do I need to talk about as a CSM in these conversations?
Yeah, we knew that we needed to create a really helpful reason to call because, as Mary said, we had CSM saying, hey, calling to check in, got a solution review, let's go through it, let's talk about what success looks like. So we knew we had to dive in a little bit deeper to help give them the right tools to have really valuable conversations with their customers. Now, how many people were in the session yesterday in here that was like the top 10 ways to become a trusted advisor? Yeah, I thought that session was awesome. I remember that Sanders from IBM had said something about, you have to know the capabilities of your product. Like that just is no nonsense, table stakes, you've got to do it. You got to know the value, but really being able to orient more around what are the outcomes that your services actually provide. Now, with SAP Concur, sure, we automate expense reports. Super sexy, love it. Say that slightly facetiously. But really, if our CSMs can understand how to tie our specific product and the functionality that we have back to helping our customers see around the corner, starting to reduce financial risk, become more financially viable as companies, and to actually help them stay in business longer, that's nailing value. That's nailing outcomes. So we have to know that. But we wanted to be able to start building additional credibility with our customers as well, be able to become that trusted advisor. And so we said, okay, what are the types of stakeholders that we typically work with? We are primarily in finance, so CFO, an AP manager, a controller. Now, controllers, I have a soft spot in my heart for them because poor folks have just the worst title. They're not the most lauded people in their company. By the very definition of what they do, they're meant to control the spend that all of y'all have, right? So keep you compliant. Hope you didn't spend too much at the bars last night after the party. Really reduce fraud. So these poor people, we really want to help lift them up, right? To understand the problems that they face within their organizations, but also be able to help them become champions within the business. Now, if I can help a controller focus less on how to talk about compliance and fraud and help them have really good conversations with their employees and their travelers around how to improve the employee experience and make their travel experiences better, then I'm doing a good job as a CSM at helping to bring value there. So being able to understand our stakeholders and the profiles and the needs that they have is really important. And then we said, okay, that's great, but we also have to understand the industries that they play in. So I also know Lorna from App Annie said some really great things yesterday around becoming a trusted advisor, doing the research on your customers. I mean, we have to, right? Like, please, I think Google that. Should I not say shit? I spell stuff all the time because I have a 2-year-old. Y'all can spell, so that's not going to help. So Google that. Definitely Google your customer. If they're public, look at their 10K. amazing. Dig around on their website, find out what you can about them. I think that's awesome. I would love to do that with every one of our customers. The reality in our business, within our segments, is that the average CSM manages between 60 and 300 customers. We have over 15,000 customers in our segment. So yes, please Google it when you can. But we had to find a way to help our CSMs to sound really credible when they're talking to their customers and sound like they understand the problems that our customers are facing, but to do so in a way that was more scalable and really helped support the CSM to differentiate themselves. So we did this exercise. We identified the top 13 industries that we sell to. Nice round number. Pharma, healthcare, legal, professional services, finance, you know what they are in your companies, hopefully. So we found these top industries. We gave them this exercise that said, go please research and understand what's happening in these industries, okay? So understand if there's any regulations and compliance that these industries face. What are the typical dynamics? What's happening in this market? Is it contracting? Is it expanding? What are the things that finance people in this industry might face? Now, I want to point out one resource that we found really valuable in this process. I think Deloitte is here. They have great stuff on their website. So they have a whole section on their website that's actually about those industry dynamics. So our teams used that as a good starting point. Then what we asked them to do is actually tie that back to the value that Concur, SAP Concur, can provide to our clients. So we know what's happening in this industry. How does that tie back to how we help companies to reduce risk and become more financially viable? And then the last piece for our CSMs was tying that back to the specific product set that each customer had. So we have this slide. We have 13 of these slides, actually, and one for each industry. Now, the only customizations that our CSMs need to do as they prepare for these solution reviews with our customers is actually customize this last section, the solution set section. So where we used to spend maybe 60 minutes preparing for a solution review, we've now been able to decrease that from between 5 to 15 minutes. There's obviously a lot of impact in that. One of the most obvious things that we've been able to derive from that is our CSMs have been able to increase the amount of solution reviews they do by 30%. So that means 30% more opportunity to engage with customers, to learn where there's risk in the account, to identify opportunities and provide those to our sales partners. So a lot more outcomes that we can drive for our customers by being able to shrink that time down. So our CSMs got really good about talking about value. They were just all about how do we drive value for our customers, right? I started sitting in on some solution reviews with some of my CSMs, and you can feel the enthusiasm, right? They're so excited to help their customers. They're eager. They want to be able to solve every problem. So they get in there, and they're just value, value, value. Here's a recommendation. You should do that. You should do this. You should do the other thing. I would count out how many recommendations we made to our customers in these meetings. There were some meetings we were making 10 different recommendations on what our customers should do to increase the outcomes and the value they get from SAP Concur. So I'd leave these meetings, and the poor customer, they just looked shell-shocked. They're like, what do I do? Talk to the CSM, and they're like, that meeting was amazing. I'm like, yeah, you are enthusiastic, and I love you for it. So we had to really work with our CSMs to say, we got to bring this more focused point of view. We have to be able to get to a point where we're asking our customers for commitment and coming on this journey with us, right? And if you tell them 10 different things to do, spray and pray, how do they know how to make sense of that? How do they know what they actually need to go focus on to drive change in their business? So we tasked them with, can you instead go into each of these meetings and have 1 to 2 really coherent recommendations that you want to make to that customer and know why? Why do you want to make that recommendation? And then we said, okay, let's equip you with some talk tracks, but also some really pointed, open-ended questions so that they could bring the customer along with them and get the customer to make that commitment to making those changes.
And once we talked about all these pieces, the value piece, the teaching, right? It's how do we tie this all together? And we found that our CSMs were doing great, piecemeal, right? But collectively, really tying together a seamless solution review seemed to elude some of the folks on our team still. So really what we did then is we ended up creating a rubric for our solution review. And it's not, over-engineered, but what our CSM said is it would be really nice to have just kind of a standard flow, so I really know kind of how to complete a successful solution review. And we created this rubric. We actually also, along with this, launched a contest where CSMs were able to take this framework, practice it over the course of several weeks, along with their manager to get coaching to come to lunch and learn sessions. And they took their calls that they recorded with the permission of their customer, and they submitted what they thought was their best solution review. And we picked winners. We had a first, second, and third winner. We made it this huge deal. Because at the beginning, we had CSM saying, oh man, really? I don't need a script. You're telling me what to do. What I'm doing is great. It's working perfectly fine. And with this new rubric and with this contest, it really ignited in our team a passion for how they talk to customers. And when you look at this, you see intro, hello, we can all introduce ourselves. But I challenge every CSM leader in this audience to go back to your team later this week and listen to how your CSMs describe themselves. Because I can tell you that not one of my CSMs could describe themselves the same way as their peer for the first year and a half that our team existed. And we took it for granted. And what happened is that, as many of you I'm sure face the same problem, is sometimes our CSMs, by the way they introduce themselves, actually set them up to be a glorified support person. Yes, come to me with all your questions. I'm here to help you. I've heard the term, think about me as your concierge here at Concur. And internally, I'm just dying a little bit inside, right? Because as we all know, you can inadvertently set yourself up like that. And as a leader, my team should not be doing that work. That's what our friends in support are for, and our friends and our services team are before. And what happened is that we were setting ourselves up inadvertently to become this position. And so with this rubric and with this framework, we were able to very clearly delineate different sections of our solution review and really focus in coaching and training select CSMs on different pieces of this. Because some of them really nailed this, right? But really had to work on things like closing out their solution review and being assertive and asking for the next, setting up the next meeting, and having clients commit to taking next action steps. And so what we saw after we were able to tie this all together and we created this rubric of what a successful solution review really is we saw it put into practice. And I took this is actually a slide that one of our CSMs created. She was actually one of the people most resistant to using slides during her solution reviews, and to this whole rubric framework. Turns out that she is now the most enthusiastic cheerleader of the way that we do solution reviews. And I actually took this slide, changed some of the data, so it wouldn't be customer data. But this slide, she started to incorporate into her solution review decks. And it just takes 5 pieces of data. And what it does is that this slide, usually CFOs and anybody in the room, they spend 45 minutes talking just about this slide. Because it's not about Concur, it's about the customer and what value it can bring. But through dialogue and questions, we can incorporate things that we, of course, want to bring to the table. But we're able to talk about ROI and very clearly connect the value of why they buy Concur with actual results. Most of our team has adopted this slide and has seen huge results. So we have really, if I'm honest, spent the good part of 2 years making this transformation, because we really asked our CSM team to completely change the way they were doing the job. And as you can imagine, asking an organization of over 100 people to completely rethink how they do their job was not necessarily the easiest thing to do. But as we brought them along in their journey, they had a lot of feedback. We incorporated their feedback, and I'm happy to say that the work paid off. Because over the course of basically 2.5 years, we've been able to see a 21 percentage point decrease in churn, which has been amazing for our company. And so today, as you think about what we've talked about, if you walk out of the room with anything that you remember from the 800 sessions that you've been to, it's really these 5 points. It's about two-way communication, bringing a unique perspective, being really clear on what value drivers the customer bought your product and service for, and very clearly tying back that value to your product and service, being comfortable to talk about money, and obviously challenging a customer's point of view. And as our tagline is just teach, tailor, and control. And as I've said, this has become a mantra throughout our entire CSM team and now is spreading across different organizations, asking us, hey, I heard you do something called teach, tailor, control. Tell me a little bit about that. I want to know how you teach customers. What do you talk about? So it's become, it's caught fire, if you will, across the Concur organization and also SAP as well. So thank you all today for your time, and we will take some questions.
I'm really feeling passionate about that top question here. So
You do it.
yeah. So I think yes. So top question, what research is your model based on? I've seen research that says challenging existing customers actually makes them less likely to renew. So the research our model is based on is the challenger sale. There's actually a lot of data within that book as well. I think there's synopses and Cliff Notes versions on Amazon for like $6, but you can buy the whole book on Amazon, maybe $16.99. I would highly recommend that. Put it on your expense report. Concur approves. So
Hopefully you can take a picture of it on your mobile device.
yeah, there you go. All right. So the thing that really resonated with me with this question, though, is I think people get so uncomfortable to challenge their customers. And I get that. It's maybe challenge is a very broad term, but what we're asking our CSMs to do, and we're suggesting that actually helps enable the customer relationship, is challenging your customers to actually make change with whatever product they have from you. If they're not making change, if you're not asking them to come along with you, they're not going to adopt it, they're not going to use it, and they're probably not going to keep it. So I think certainly being an a-hole, this is a 3-year-old, I have a 2.5-year-old, like I said, the a-hole version of challenging your customers, maybe don't do that. But asking them to come on a journey with you and asking for their commitment is what we're talking about. We've got to push into the discomfort a little bit. I feel like I have this conversation with my CSMs all the time. I know that Nick is a big vulnerability fan and big Brené Brown fan. I am too, slightly fanatical. If you have not watched her TED Talk on vulnerability and shame, you should do it. But being able, I give her books out to my CSMs all the time because I'm like, y'all, it's okay. You can say no. You can tell the client, no, they can't do that. And ask them for, coming along with you. That's okay. So.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add to that is, frankly, 3 years ago when we started this journey, nobody else was doing this. So honestly, it was a risk. It could have totally failed. And there were parts of it where it failed and we had to rethink, God, does this fit? Is this right? Because 3 years ago, nobody was doing this. But as I said, we took a chance on it. We thought it was right. And we had, the buy-in, not just of me, it wasn't, oh, it's a good idea. My leaders bought into this with a passion and still do today. So that's very, very important. And to be honest, it was a risk that we took and it's paid off. So that's good.
Do you want to take that next one?
Sure. I love this question. What introduction do you coach your CSMs to use to not set themselves up to be a glorified support rep? That's a great question. And I'll tell you a little bit of a story around some of the coaching that went into this, because when we put together our rubric and this contest came out, they really got serious about nailing it because they knew to win, it was a pretty good sum of money that they could win. They really wanted to get serious. So I was on sessions. People would come into my office and say, oh, do you have half an hour and help me, coach me through this? And the interesting thing is they were trying to overcomplicate the shit out of it.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult to say what we do. And so we didn't tell them exactly what to say because we do want it to sound authentic and true to who they are. And so really what our CSMs end up saying the majority of the time is they introduce themselves and they say, I'm your client success manager. I'm here to help you understand why you bought Concur and what's important to you to help us make your business be successful and help you do that. That's it. I'm not here to answer questions, although we will. And that eventually comes up, not to say that we won't ever do that, but to make it really clear. I had CSMs where I would actually go up to the client afterwards, the introduction, I'd call the client and I'd introduce myself and I'd say, hey, you know, part of that call, do you have a clear understanding of what my team does? And I heard anything from, oh, you're the salesperson, right? Nope. You're the support rep? Nope. And so honestly, this is actually now part of our onboarding and training for all new CSMs, is to pitch their elevator pitch on how you would tell your grandma what you do for work. And all of our CSMs do it and have to do it not only to their peers, but to their boss. And it's actually something that I ask them. I do skip level meetings and I meet all of our CSMs. Skip level meetings, if you will, and meet all of my CSMs. In every part of our conversation, I always ask them, hey, you know, we're talking about their career trajectory and, you know, what they want to do and what they're excited to learn. And I always ask the question, hey, now that you've been here for a few weeks and, you know, I don't expect you to know everything, but like, how do you describe your role here? And it's a question that we continually ask our folks.
And can I just add one thing? Because I think there was a practical part of this exercise. It's really hard. Like when we started 2.5 years ago, I would sit down and listen to how people introduce themselves, and it was literally all over the map. And people were all generally doing the same job. So I got my first team in a room like 2.5 years ago here, and I asked them to whiteboard all the things that they did. And then we talked about, like, what does that actually mean for the customer? And what impact does that make back to the business? And so we had this like, really good, like, soul search. I'm all about those feelings. So this good soul searching exercise where we talked about, like, what is the meaning of life? No, what is the meaning of my job here? And I think out of that came this really distilled version of, like, here's what I want to do. I'm bought into this. This is my job. And now I can organize myself around how I articulate that job to my customers and also to all of my peers internally. So that was really fun.
Yeah. This next question, I like this because this is real life. I hear this a lot. How do you challenge a client that isn't strategic and doesn't have time to prioritize or drive outcomes? This is a really great question because as Dylan mentioned before, we own our SMB business, which is clients that pay us $2,000 a year and maybe have 10 employees, all the way up to $1 million plus clients. So we have a wide range of a variety of clients that are in different phases of their maturity in their business. And so this happens actually a lot, particularly in our small business customers. And one of the things that we lean on very heavily is that value and that teaching part of the conversation. And sometimes if you're in a solution review and you can tell they're not checked out and I don't have time for this and, you know, let's get to the point, is that I know that when I've asked somebody based on our data, hey, there's an opportunity for you to save X amount of money. Can we dig into that? No one's ever said no, right? It's about, and yes, that's easy for us to say because, you know, we're about expense management and data, but I know all of you in your products, you have that point that you can bring to customers and say, did you know that you can save this, or you can be more efficient with this, or I can save you time here? There is not going to be a decision maker that says, no, I don't want to save time. No, I don't want to make my life easier. It's about getting to that point where you give them, hey, what's in it for them? And that's what we always coach our team to talk about in these type scenarios.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, with that $2,000 customer, we're working with a person who's the controller, CFO, finance admin, AP manager, all of those things in one. So you're right, they don't have time. So how do we adjust what kind of outcomes we can do for them and focus on what's meaningful? For them, it's probably more around automation and making things work really well. So if we can make that easier for them and really speak the language of what's going to have an impact, I think that's kind of the way that our teams have been successful there. So.
You want to take the next one or you want me?
How do you challenge a customer who says, I spent all my budget on your solution. I don't have any money for internal resources to implement your solution. I need you to own it.
True story.
That does happen. Yes. So I think, again, I mean, we're talking about they bought it, but they didn't put anyone on it to implement it? It's kind of scary. Usually we're honestly bringing sales back in. I have a team specifically who focuses on these new customers, and we do a ton of work essentially bringing in all of our stakeholders internally and trying to understand the things that we can do and the levers that we can pull. So if it's a budget issue, then we're not going to be recommending a partner. We do have partners that can help drive implementations if it's a staffing issue. If it's a money issue, we can certainly make recommendations about the best practices of how they should implement and configure, and we can try to confine down the scope of what they need to do and make that kind of a gradual thing with milestones along the way. But I think it's about getting the customer's commitment in terms of what they can actually do, and trying to put it back into the context of, hey, you bought this for a reason, so let us get you to that first part where you're starting to see that initial value, and then we can work towards, on a journey together, getting all the way to, the promised land. So,
the next question: how do you mitigate impact on client outcomes when scaling a CS team and shuffling accounts? This is a great question, and it's actually something we still struggle with, if I'm honest. Our growth year over year is astronomical. My team on any given month is probably getting upwards of 400 to 500 new accounts, and it's a lot. So what we've done and what we've utilized and what has been helpful is really being thoughtful and planful around what our success plans. And part of a successful solution review or successful introduction call, we tell a CSM having the phone call doesn't mean that you're successful. You have to document it, because the day that that account gets switched, the day you're on vacation, the day that you're on maternity or paternity leave, your team members are going to be helping you with those accounts. So we need to understand what's going on. So we've actually really ingrained it in our culture that it's not just about the phone call, it's about the post-call follow-up and documentation that goes after that. And so that when we do switch accounts, and quite frankly, we try only to do major shifts of accounts once a year, that there are enough notes documented within the success plan, and that there are very template fields and commonplace fields, so that on every single account we know what their value drivers are that have been documented, so that the next CSM can always refer and validate those. And any risk that's ever been identified has been documented and what was done about that risk. So is it perfect? Absolutely not. I still get calls from customers that are like, really, again, I have a new CSM. And so I wouldn't say we've nailed it, but at least we've gotten the part down from a perspective of being able to document what CSM has, the knowledge that they've gained during their time owning that account.
So I think we can hit up that first one and then that second one like pretty quickly and probably make it out of here and get you on time. So I want to do the second one first because I think that's quick. How often do you do solution reviews for each customer? What kind of cadence? It depends on the size of the territory and the size of the customer. We try to do between 2 and 4 per year, 2 to 4 per year, depending upon the size of the customer and how big the book is. The CSMs can on average do, 5 plus per week. So it's really being able to look at, again, how many customers they have in the territory. So what if a desired client outcome involves product enhancements that don't exist? How do you still drive outcomes?
Yeah, I think this actually goes back to being honest with the customer. I think a lot of CSMs have it in their DNA to do whatever they can to make the customer happy. But to be honest and say, you know what, I get where you're going. We actually have a feature where you can, request that, and the community at Concur can vote that up. But I have to be honest with you, that is not something that is in our current roadmap today. Being able to say that, I mean, it sounds really simple, but some CSMs won't say it. They'll like tap dance around the issue, and it makes it way worse. So we really encourage our teams and coach them to be very honest with clients. But then we also go back to the piece where we want you to lean into that conversation a little bit and ask them what they're trying to solve for. Because what we find sometimes is that clients are asking us for a certain enhancement to a product to solve a specific problem, but there's actually a different way that we can solve that problem. And you won't know that unless you ask the question, what are you trying to solve for and why? And then by asking that question, oftentimes, I would say maybe even 50% of the time, you can actually arrive at their desired outcome a different way than they were expecting.
Y'all are fast. Someone asked if we were hiring anonymously and
Yes, we
friend.
are. Come
Just
talk to
LinkedIn us. Yeah, pretty much always. There it is. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So we actually have a minute left. Do we want to answer one?
Yeah, one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
How do you see it? We answered that question, didn't we? How do CSMs
I guess we didn't
themselves
answer it coherently
Did I
enough.
okay.
That's my takeaway.
Simple. My name is Mary Bent-Velson. I'm your client success manager. My job is to understand why you bought Concur and make sure you're getting the money that you paid for our solution and it's making sense to you. Or, my name is Mary. I'm your client success manager. I'm here to understand why you bought Concur and make sure that you achieve those desired results. A flavor of that is how our CSMs now introduce themselves.
And I sit in meetings sometimes with salespeople. This leads to, has your sales team perfected the CS intro? I mean, come on. So when I'm in the meetings with the salesperson and the CSM, they'll kind of go through their intros and they'll say, okay, salesperson here who just said this wonderful, beautiful story about what their job is, about strategic vision and this and that.
But didn't say I'm your salesperson.
Then I usually will say, so this person's measured on driving additional revenue from your business, and then our team is measured on driving retention and client satisfaction. And keep it as simple as that, because I think if you can pare it down for the customer to the KPI, they tend to get it. All right, I think we're out of time. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
That was like